Well done. I didn't try to leave with this Barry, but I want to be talking about.
Sorry.
As I said, it's a broad church, isn't it? This but we can start with the engine. It won't go round. So that's not good, is it?
I thought it would make rather a good subject for a Meccano model, so here it is. The theory behind these vehicles is quite simple. Being small, nippy and manoeuvrable, they'd dispatch one of these to the scene of a fire first, and the two-man crew would do their best with what they've got, the minimal equipment to contain the fire, while the larger apparatus came along later. And so that's hence the headline, first on the scene. So you'll be tearing off with one of these first and wait for the other appliances. That was the theory behind it. The prototype, the real one, typical Model T up to about there, that's about Model T Ford Tourer up to there. And then the Prospect Engineering Company had the firefighting gear on the back. So we've got another Model T over there.
Another Model T.
2.9 litre engine, epicyclic gearbox, should be somewhere down there, not on mine though, more over there. And I think it's a worm drive diff at the back. What else have we got here? Oh, I have managed to build some sort of an engine block in there. £2.50 from the local antique shop. Works quite well, it rattled all the way from my house to here. I shall fix it going home. What else have we got? Oh, I won't say too much about the hose, that's a bit of electrical cable. And the wheels? The wheels, oh yes, some poor child has lost the tyre off his pushchair. And that's about all the phones. Oh, headlamps are spinners off model aircraft propellers. So those are all the non-Meccano bits. As for the model itself, well, start at this end with the rad. Unfortunately, 20 inches wide on the real one, 5 inches on the model. Not a good dimension to start. But nevertheless, we did have some good luck because 100-inch wheelbase, 25 inches on the model, just right for a 24.5-inch angle girder chassis. Well, that worked out well. Underneath here, I've got those, what do they call those things, the crisscross?
Brace gird?
Yes, brace girders are all along here, because they happen to be 2 inches wide. We have a siren, we have a very grippy steering wheel in the shape of a gearing. A couple of tanks, one with water, one with CO2. Mix them together somehow, I'm not quite sure how, but mix them together and you should get a jet of water out of there. Fire extinguisher. And I don't know what they are, I assume that's a toolbox. Anyway, quick demo. Obviously it's set up for the fire, but first of all we've got a little problem of getting the motor started. I was explaining earlier that according to this book here, if the Model T didn't want to go, you were advised to jack up one of the rear wheels, like that, put a chock under the front, and, maybe with a bit of luck, on the fourth swing, 1, 2, 3, 4. And so we have a power drive motor driving one rear wheel and a fan at the front here, which you might be able to As I say, once you've got the motor running, away you go. Now to drive one of these things, a bit unusual compared to somebody who's used to a normal car, you move the handbrake first to the mid position, that gives you neutral. Then you stamp on the left hand pedal, that is your first gear, away you go. But you must keep your foot on that all the time you want first gear, because as soon as you let go, you're in second, or tap as it was. Only 2 gears, fast and slow. So that's your left pedal. Centre pedal is reverse, and the right hand pedal is the transmission brake. So really quite simple to drive. So is that. The seat, I hope you like the seat, because that was the only part of the model that caused any bad language, that did. But eventually I did get it to something like the shape I wanted. Tanks, well, it's pretty simple. As I say, that's a bit of my brother's car jump lead.
You got an axe?
Oh, an axe, sorry, what's it? Yes, an axe.
Right.
So there you are. That's
Well done, Alan.
That's it. Okay.
I mean, I don't know what your secret is, but what impresses me is you build models. I presume it's the same parts every time, but they always look as though it's the first time they've been used. So you look after them well.
No, I sort of keep turning.
Wales last year, I've come across a huge great book called 20th Century Modern Art. And I went through it, and you've got the usual half cows and a bed with used condoms in it, and a parlour dog and all that modern art. But I come across this cylinder, highly polished stainless steel cylinder with a ball on the top. Not a lot of information. In fact, virtually all it said, but the ball was motorised and it went round the top of the sphere. How it did this, I haven't a clue. But I thought that should make an interesting model, kind of. And after a lot of ideas, I came up with this. It's the nearest I could get to it. I couldn't spell revolving, so I had to stick revolting on it. The ball, I would have liked to have made all in one colour, but it's made out of large triangular plates, and I haven't got enough of one colour, so I ended up like that. When I took it down to Cubs and other places, they've all been asking me how does it work, so I built this smaller model to show how it works. All this part here is on 4.5 and 5.5 inch strips in that model. But as you see, it works all right. And I just had a bit of fun. And I thought, I'll build something different for the show. I like to build something every year. And just before Christmas, the national newspapers published for about 2 weeks this advert for Audi cars. All it said on there was Audi. But I looked at it and I thought, many years ago I built a guitar. What about another musical instrument? At first I thought of a triangle, but I looked through all my models, my sets, and I haven't got the right angles for a triangle, so I thought I got this. So I started off with this. I wasn't too bad till I got to the bend. Well, how the heck do I do this bend? Wasn't doing too bad till I realised all my large triangular strips, yellow, were on that. I thought, well, I'm not going to disturb that. So I did the best I could, because I found out that, as you know, Meccano parts virtually only bend one way at a time. But I found that triangular plates, you can bend 2 ways at a time, because you can bend the top over. And so I did the best I could, which, as you can see, is that. Then I found out that there are so many different types of saxophones. I've got more at home. And then the youngest son sent me this. So as I went round, that's about Mark 7. And unfortunately, on the way here, something's gone wrong with my balance. It's been running since Christmas, perfectly okay. It's been to a couple of places already. Well, it plays up here, doesn't it? It's on a 12-volt motor, operating on 5 volts, just to make it go nice and slow. I got told off once for it going around too quick. So I thought it'd be a bit of fun.
Music does go round and round.
So, sorry, I don't understand. Are you saying that it should do something else, or you said you've lost the balance, or
yeah, it's all tipped to one side.
So it should be vertical, should it, and going around? Is that the plan, or is it?
No, it's just tipped to one side. It should be upright like that.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Something's gone wrong underneath there somewhere.
It's effective as it is. Probably more effective. I thought it was intended to be now.
No, it wasn't intended to be like that. But I thought it was something different. So
It is indeed.
well done. That's my.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
One other thing, I got up to here, and I got stuck for the mouthpiece. And Alan, wherever he is,
I'm there.
he was there, gave me 1 or 2
clues, but it's still up to about there. But I still couldn't finish it off, and I was looking through all my Meccano, and I thought, what on earth can I use? Couldn't find anything there, so I went through all my boxes of Meccano, till I come to the space outfit. And as you can see, what I've done there, and I've had to use unfortunately one non-bit of Meccano, a bit of black plastic. I know, a shame on me, isn't it? Just to finish it off there. Okay.
Right, thank you.
It has to look like hydraulic, but it's always failed because it's been too expensive or unavailable. So I've come up with this idea. Boom. So all you can say about it is that the movement is quite, I think, authentic. It just doesn't look like hydraulic.
When it's moving both ways, is it being pulled and pushed at the same time?
Yes.
Or is it isn't just gravity?
No.
It's actually being pulled and pushed.
So you've got a cross piece here. The cords pull against the rubber, and then the rubber pull against the cords. And then these are just 3 winches there. And of course the winch cords can go up. And that's it. So just another solution that might
Another
work.
solution to the hydraulic.
Not bad,
problem,
actually.
instead of not having proper hydraulic.
Oh, and the thing is, I looked to see a Meccano model of this, the Telford Bridge. Okay.
Right, thanks, Robert.
5 years ago, I used to ride this, not this particular model, obviously the real thing, on Walton Pier. I've never seen this, which is called a spider ride, anywhere else except once in a large travelling fun fair. When I built it with an E20R motor, and I'll show you how it worked. It does, of course, being at the trying to demonstrate it. Slipping clutch, that's right. That was on the minimum voltage, and the idea is that when it increases in speed, these take off, but it's a bit violent. And the cars tend to come apart there. When my children put their play people in and they fell out, they squealed with delight. As they always would.
Of course.
So I rebuilt this from 3 slides I took at the time, but I wanted to put in a new mechanism. While I'm talking to you, I'll just switch it over, which would stop and start it, which, as anybody knows, is quite a major task with these sort of models, because you've got a lot of momentum to start with, to overcome a lot of friction. But once it gets going, it's not bad at all. And the other thing was, I wanted it to start with maximum torque, therefore, so minimum speed, but speed up so that the cars would actually just about take off, as in the real thing, because you give the riders a bit of free fall as it goes over the large hump. The small hump, as it were, primes the cars up the large hump. At least that's the intention. So I've devised this mechanism, I'll talk to you before I switch it on, which moves a sliding shaft backwards and forwards about an inch, on which a 1-inch pulley with ring bears against a 4-inch circular disc as a friction drive, so that when it engages, it's on the edge at about 2-inch radius. The maximum speed is about 1-inch radius, going up twice the speed. So here it goes. It struggles a bit to start with, then it goes, well, as I said, the torque's quite high. It's now speeding up, and it does just take off at this point here. Now it's slowing down again. So that for exhibitions, hopefully it'll be reliable enough that it'll just keep going. Stops instantaneously, engages again, speeds up, especially when the motor's been going for a little while. It's a little bit fast then. But you can actually put a screwdriver there, it's not hitting it. Now it is, because it's slightly slowed down. And it does that all the time, hopefully long enough to be reliable enough in exhibition. That's basically it, unless anybody's got any questions. Well, I haven't seen this mechanism used before. I've been asking around, I think it has been published, perhaps in the Meccano magazine, but otherwise I had to devise it myself. Also, I've never seen this particular model before, and if it is a first, then of course it could be a very useful mechanism for driving such models where you need a lot of torque to start up with and then build up to a speed. That's basically it, really.
Thank you, Tony. Angle. The real thing goes up steeper than 45 degrees, slightly steeper than 45 degrees. Now, if you try that in the car, you do it with a screw rod, and the hydraulics of this would lift up from here, from the chassis here, it would be a three-stage hydraulic ram there, which to get that amount of lift in the car now, your screw rod would have to be up here, and of course it won't work because this wants to go round. So that's a problem. And came to the conclusion the only way to do it is to pull it up and put this ram in here, and two screw rods pull this ram up, and this to ride up. And it's got to have a lot of weight, because if you look at the leverage here, it's not advantageous to lift that up. But that's quite a powerful 12-volt motor. And this is a 5-amp controller out of my Condor. I needed it in the Condor, so I had it. One of these stands no chance. It just cuts out all the time. So I've already stripped one or two now, threaded couplings, because the weight is so great. But the lift mechanism is virtually unstoppable. It just matches it up. I've got no limit switches at the moment. This literally has come together in the last couple of weeks. But we'll give it a try to lift it up. I'm not with this electrical thing. Well, it's... Yeah. No, George is right. I'll show you it in the next meeting. Is that so, John? Do you want to abandon it? I think it's ground at the end of the... Can we sort of abandon you, John, and we'll come back later when you've sorted it all out, so we're not breathing down your neck as you try and sort it out. My apologies. That is the case, gentlemen and ladies. Did you catch that? First model in 15 years, I think. Yes. But nonetheless, welcome for that, sir. Good to see you. Second in 16.
Second in 16, yeah.
It's good to see you back with the model.
The last one was 15 years ago, and I idly said to someone I was going to try and build a locomotive in which the drive was going to be enclosed so that we could see it. This was started, and having been started, it was left in the sun, and there are two plates at the front and back which were lying around, and those are faded. There's the evidence of it. Anyway, this is a Great Western Railway 262 tank designed by Churchill in 1907. As you can see, it's built with 3.5-inch gauge, and the big thing about it is that the motor is actually in the boiler here. There's a power drive there. It drives down by the shafts into the cylinders, which oscillates the cylinders into the pistons, which then drives the wheels. So it sounds easy, please, it causes all sorts of problems. The main one is that if you try to put a contrate onto a shaft and drive it, you've got two grub screws holding it, unless you want to file flats or anything, and it slips. And the power, that's the contrate won't tick. And if there's any jamming at all, the contrate slips, the two cylinders get out of oscillation, out of control, and that's what happens. But anyway, that's the first thing about it. And the second thing about it is we've got artillery wheels on which we've managed to get flanges. This was courtesy of Mike Atkins. At the last meetings I started talking with Mike about how to do it, and he did a flange on a 3-inch pulley like that. He got it also on his pram bogie, and we discussed it, and it finished up with flanges being put on the artillery wheels. And there's all sorts of other problems. It fits in this. The oscillation, the other cylinder on this side is not covered up, so you can see what happens. But the throw of the crank is less than ½ an inch, which means that your crank distance on the wheels has got to be ½ an inch. So you've got to adjust the cranks to the right throw, or they lock up completely, and various other problems with it and so on. But at any rate, I tried to do it. I see it will run. It doesn't like to go quickly. Please, it does drive. But that is, and if anyone wants to have a look at the innards inside, that's what we've got inside of it. Anyway, that was an attempt to do it with the motor in the boiler. I hope to get it completely hidden, but it wouldn't quite fit in, and the boiler is a little bit elongated to fit the detail in. There it is. Anyway, 1907 Churchward 262 tank. The only other thing abnormal about it is smoke box is ½ an inch too long. I couldn't get 2-inch spacing for the smoke. It was only a 1.5-inch plate. You couldn't get a 1-inch plate. So that concept then says the smoke box is long. Okay, I accept that. And there's no standard, non-standard. Well, there is the coffee pot is out of a Mike Burgess connector, but apart from that, there's nothing. They're all standard Meccano parts in that. Well, they're all, some of them are vintage ones, I'll accept, but they're all available Meccano parts on it. That's it anyway. Yep.
Well done. So many years before they bought a model that, because I get this guilt complex. When I came in September, you may recollect, we got all the carcass of this cabinet along. And it wasn't until the very end of January that I actually managed to finish it. There's still not a single bolt put into its Meccano. I then embarked upon a model which is considerably larger than this, which I've now mothballed at the moment. And I thought, what the hell am I going to take to the meeting? Because there's no way I'm going to turn up with nothing again. And I've long had the desire to rebuild the lifeboat and trailer which appeared in the number 8 model instruction book of the early 1950s. I know nothing about boats, nothing about maritime things. I took the design from the lifeboat from a Meccano magazine of June 1967, which is the only I could find. We've got one of them. It ends up looking nothing like a lifeboat, more like a small trawler, but no matter, because I was pleased with the overall effect. The cab of this just attaches onto 4 threading crosses here, and I always used to reckon that if you built a standard model from the instruction books when I was a lad, up until outfit 9, if you took the number of the outfit, give or take, it would take you about that many hours to build it. Did it help? I think with the number 8 here, with all good intention, I could stick another 2 on the front of the figure, because I found it's when you start designing things yourself, you find all sorts of complications. I felt that the drive was jumping out and things like that, which I've overcome by outriggers here. The only thing I can demonstrate it does actually work. The steering is very rudimentary. It's disengages on one side or t'other and returns simply by springs in the middle to a central position. Ended up with, I started off looking at one of Bert Love's models. He built a tank or something probably 20-25 years ago. So I used the insulated spacers, which are for rigidity. I also used a fair number of screwed rods and screws in here to brace things, to stop it actually moving about, because you'd be surprised at the amount of tension that's generated in these things once they start going. And in the end, I've been relatively pleased with the end result, not least the boat, which I don't know what it is, but at the end of it I'm quite pleased with what I've got. I just mentioned that we have 4 beloved Persian cats at home, and one of them, who's frightened of his own shadow, just can't resist this. He can be fast asleep in the adjoining room. I switch the motor on, and there he is. I don't think it's anything, I don't think he likes it one little bit. It's a bit like the fascination of a snake. I think it's maybe the wire or something, you know. He takes one look at it, and he can't move. He just sits there watching it. Is the power this on? I'll just mention that it does have a slight left-hand bent. Perhaps like me. Can't decide where it wants to go. And it will go with the cab on as well. I won't demonstrate the steering because it is very much rudimentary.
Is that what the cat likes? Yeah.
Sorry?
Is that what the cat likes, going across the floor?
I don't know what it is. It's this cable, I think, as much as anything, that just fascinates it. It sits there hypnotised. The one last thing, I did think about putting a name on my ship, and I struggled to find something. I thought about something like the Clinton story, because it's full of holes. Maybe Mandelson, because it's bent as hell. But
No.
Thanks. That's the allotment for it.
that's it.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, it's worth making the point again, of course, in case anybody gets the wrong idea, that people who come without models are extremely welcome. Yeah, I mean, there's no nonsense. I thought you'd abandon infrared, but lo and behold, it's there again. Would you like to just very quickly...
Yes, this is a 1970s Mercedes-Benz coach that was originally built by the late Roger Wallace in 1977. I saw the picture of it in the Meccano magazine. It caught me eye and I said I've got to build it. Most of the coach is Roger's original design, except for the seats and the mechanics underneath. It's got the French decals on it because I'm going to the French Meccano Club's exhibition in about 6 weeks' time. But underneath, I've also adapted the coach has got wheel bearings on it. The bearings are 2 little remote control racing car bearings made by a company called Rickmax. 8mm OD, 4mm ID, so you can fit them on a 4mm shaft and put them inside a large axle bush wheel. They do also makes the coach run a lot smoother. I mean, that's how I do spin on it. What George does say about me with the action control, I am a machine setter by my job. I mean, I've set lathes, millers, gear cutting machines. That's probably why I can do it. Roger's job in other cars and the other one. There's still a little bit of work to do on it. But I think it shows a tribute to Roger Wallace's model building.
Yes, I mean, it's a beautiful model coach in any case there. There's a good-looking model. But to see it driving around under its own power, you controlling it, it's almost unbelievable again. Is it working now?
Hopefully. Good backlash on the coach shaft, which needs to be taken in.
Alan wants to make a point, I think.
The word on the infrared controller and the trouble it gives. I was left given this one to solve a couple of years ago, and I found that the trouble was that the small batteries, not bigger, the pen length batteries that's working, the case was so tight that they didn't slide against the contact springs. And the whole solution was just to loosen the case screws.
I know that the power in the batteries is very little. You're using different batteries. The motors will take much more powerful batteries.
See, I mean, I don't know how much current those little French motors will pull, but it's a lot more than what the AA battery will give out. I mean, one of the Frenchmen was Daniel Petit, he uses, and Pierre Monster. They both use these URs.
Can I just say what's wrong with the original? I'm sure that it is the battery. We're getting contact. Battery's retired. Loosen the case.
Certainly, it works when Dave does it.
Oh yeah,
They're different ones.
Two sets and they work fine. And those who saw the steam engine I made last time, that was quite successful. This is one of these new kits, and one of the others that goes with it is over the other side. For those of you that don't know, I'm an engineer by profession, and I've done quite a lot of work, and I still do, with the airship people at Cardington. When I saw this thing advertised, I thought, well, I've got to have one of those if I don't have anything else. And this is it. I made it up more or less as it came out of the box, and as you can see, it comprises some fairly standard bits of Meccano in there, a lot of newish plastic parts, and some wooden parts. The wings are wooden, and this panel on the back here is a wooden panel, and all I did was push them out of the original stamping and gave them a coat of paint, which is suggested in the instructions to give it an improved appearance. And that's it for what it's worth. If I let go of it, it'll make a hole in the ground. So I won't let go of it, but it does actually work, and there's a... So it's a bit sort of Jules Verne-like, but there we are. So surprisingly, the anchor on the front is not actually a plastic moulding, that's actually a cast metal anchor, and the rest of it is the other front, it's plastic moulding.
The latest bad news from Nico, the people who made that, is the fact that they're going to I think they're going to produce everything from now on in plastic, and they're going to be no more metal Meccano.
Oh dear.
That is the latest.
Right, there we are. There it
Well,
is.
thanks for showing that, Mac. And you know, we have to move with the times, and it amazes me how many people who are anti-plastic, and I don't know that I'm talking about anybody in this room, you know, they'll drive home tonight in their car surrounded by the stuff, and yet seem to think that engineering doesn't use plastic. But we have to move with the times, and this is sold pretty well, I understand, at Christmas. The tragedy, I don't know about you with this, Mike, but also Ken, if he's around, might comment if you read the write-up of his. Unfortunately, these things don't seem to go together as easily as they ought. And partly it's a matter of quality of parts, partly it's a matter of rods being tight fits in bosses and things. And that's, you know, it's not just you can't read the instructions like Frank Hornby's problem. It's always a bit of a challenge to understand the instruction book. In this case, there appears to be a little bit of a quality problem as well. And I ran a micrometer over threaded pins, and it's amazing over the years, somebody mustn't have got the spec right on threaded pins because they're all over the place. And yet they're crucial items because you've got things rotating on them.
Can I just comment there, Jules, that there is a manufacturer of kits of model cars, Japanese, every big gas tank.
Well, it's unfortunate that we get Meccano taken over by the Japanese, and for some reason the quality seems to have gone the other way, instead of everything being right. But maybe it'll still be sorted out.
Sure.
Now,
I think Meccano's engineering tolerances or whatever they can get around it.
well, you see, I think they were tremendous in the past. I mean, you know, over the first 80, 90 years, the fact that you can take parts from the 1910s and 1920s, everything still fits perfectly. It's a tremendous tribute in quality of engineering, and unfortunately, it seems to have lost some of that, but never mind. Now, I wanted to say something about my own model, but before I do that, I realise that we've overlooked one or two people, either because they didn't volunteer or because we didn't get a return from them. If there's anybody here who's hurt by the fact that we haven't mentioned their model, please yell, please talk. But I presume you've got round and you've seen all the others. I mean, most, not all, but some of them we've seen previously, and some of them we haven't. And have I missed anybody out that I should have included?
I saw the area of the pits and whatever that the stern frames of the Queen Elizabeth were cast in. Very original, the early stern frames of ships.
Yes, it's asking a lot, isn't it?
Something's got to the mark though, it's too big, isn't it? It's just to try and, you know, I saw this passing road with it, I sort of like having a go at it. It's got centrifugal production. Mr. Armstrong sits down centrifugal production, so Manchester down, how's the Oxford?
Thank you.